Big thank you to Tom Vecchio and Austin Swain for filling in for me for the past couple of days. Much appreciated on their part. And a no thank you to the Major League Baseball scheduling overlords who decided to thank me or welcome me back as with a just brutal slate. Because, yeah, it's a 14-game slate, and there are a lot of good pitchers on the mound for tonight, but pretty much every single one of them is in a difficult situation for one reason or another, whether it be a repeat matchup, whether it be coming off of the COVID list, or facing just a tough team in general, maybe checking all three boxes at the exact same time. It's not ideal. There are no clear-cut, no thought about it pitchers for today, except for maybe potentially one, and it's tough. So our job is to sift through those flaws, decide which ones we can tolerate, which ones we might not be able to tolerate, and decide who grades out best for MLB DFS. So let's dive on in and get you set for this Friday night slate. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to break down Friday's 14-game main slate. We're locked set for 7:05 p.m. Eastern for today. And somehow, despite this being a 14-game slate, we've got no weather to discuss. It's pretty good out there for the most part. It is a bit warmer than usual in Atlanta, 90 degrees at first pitch for today there. So bump up bats there. Hopefully not too much, depending on, we'll talk about some pitchers later on. But overall, pretty low-key slate in terms of weather. So hopefully that does stick for later on for today. Now, before we dive into the pitching preview for today, quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, because the next half week or so, pretty big week here on the feed. We, of course, have the NASCAR podcast for Atlanta coming up later on today. Austin Swain, as you covered with UFC each and every week. And on Monday, we'll have our preview of the Open DFS preview for golf's final major of the year. Myself and Brandon Gadula breaking down our favorite golfers in each salary tier for the Open Championship. That'll be on Monday sometime. Not really sure what time specifically yet, but that'll be up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after the fact, and on the FanDuel YouTube page live as well. So search for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. This baseball season turned Ks into cash and big hits into big wins with FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. With great promotions every day, a safe and secure app, and the ability to get paid fast, there is no better place to bet America's pastime than America's #1 sportsbook. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up today to get started with your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online and real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable free bets that expire 14 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Louisiana, 1-877-770-STOP. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. In Wyoming, 1-800-522-4700. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Pitching preview for this Friday main slate. Nestor Cortes is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel, checking in at $10,300, followed by Zach Wheeler at $10,200. Charlie Morton is $10,000. Chris Bassett off the COVID list, $98,000, facing Pablo Lopez, who is $9,700. John Gray, $93,000, facing off with Sonny Gray, 2 shades of gray, $9,100. Tyler Anderson is $9,000 with Lucas Giolito, Adam Wainwright, George Kirby, Tarek Skubal, Blake Snell, Paul Blackburn, Tyler Wells, Zach Gallen, Jose Urquidy, and JT Brubaker, the others at $8,000 or higher. So yeah, a lot of names, a lot of dudes at $8,000 or higher, but a lot of flaws within those guys. And I can nitpick every single one of those guys except for potentially one. And that one guy is Charlie Morton. He will be our top pitcher of the day. And it's definitely a hot streak here for Morton, and hot streaks don't always last. We don't want to buy into them at all times, but I will buy into it here. Morton is the top pitcher today. He has hit 10 plus strikeouts in 3 of his past 5 starts. He had 9 in another, and he had 8 the start before that 5-game streak began. Now, that could just be cherry picking because, we play with stats all the time, but there was a change in approach for Morton 6 starts ago. That's when he started throwing his four-seam fastball less. Before that start, the usage on that pitch was 37%. It is 29% since then, and it hit a season low of 19% in his most recent start. That four-seam fastball was getting rocked. He had a 504 expected slugging percentage allowed to it, according to Baseball Savant. So it's good to cut back on a pitch like that. And he has, and it seems to be helping. It has been aided by a good schedule here because Morton faced the Reds, the Pirates, and the Rockies in that time, but he also had 11 strikeouts against the Giants. That was not a super easy spot. And plus, the Giants are a good team, whereas the Nationals are not. They have a 98 WRC plus against righties with a 136 ISO. Not a big strikeout team. I think if you were to find a flaw with Morton, it would be that. They're not a high strikeout team, but Morton is in a groove. I think he can get strikeouts even against a lower strikeout opponent. So, yeah, it's a heater. And heaters can sometimes lead us down the wrong path, but there is an explanation for it given Morton's change in his approach, and he's in a decent spot here. So I will put Morton as my number one pitcher for today. I think kind of by himself as the one guy without any major flaws. So Charlie Morton to me is the number one guy of the night. Now, we talked a while ago about Lucas Giolito, and his velocity had been dipping, which meant I couldn't consider him despite a low salary. And that is still true. Its velocity has been down his past couple starts as well, but the results and the peripherals have both been better. So we get Giolito. The question marks are there. The flaws are there, as with every guy in the slate, but the path to upside is still there. And I think that I want to put him number 2 for today. He gets the Tigers at home tonight, and it looks like Giolito is at least adjusting to the reduced velocity. He's cut back on his fastball usage in his past couple of starts, using more changeups and more sliders instead. And that does seem to be helping a bit. He had a 15.6% swing and strike rate against the Angels. Now, the Angels are a high strikeout offense, but that game was on the road. Despite striking out a lot, they are a good offense as well. He's now facing the Tigers at home, and they're definitely improving. The Tigers now in July are different than the Tigers we had in May, but still a 73 WRC plus on the current active roster against righties. That is the lowest in the slate by 10 percentage points, 24% strikeout rate, minimal walks. So we bumped them up because they've been better. And that's, I think, probably what I would expect going forward is for them to be better. But it's still a good bounce back spot here for Giolito, despite considering that. I'm not sure if he's fully healthy based on, the velo dips. Those are a concern, but he might be able to be okay here, even with the velocity being down. Not fully convinced, which is why I prefer Morton, which is why I think that there is a legitimate red flag tied to Giolito's name for today. That's why I would lower Giolito if you think that he will be super popular for this slate, which I think there's a decent chance that he is. But just straight up, I would say, all things considered, Giolito to me is the number 2 pitcher behind Charlie Morton for today. So to me, it's Morton 1, Giolito 2, but I think there is a gap between those two guys at the top of the slate. Now, with Giolito being the value play, the board is open here for our third pitcher of the night, and I'm going to go Zach Wheeler in this situation. It's a really difficult spot because it's a tough matchup facing the Cardinals on the road, and it's a repeat matchup. He just saw them last week. That's brutal. I hate that combination. I hate it, but I think all things considered, even with everyone else having so many flaws, Wheeler does belong in the third slot for today. The Cardinals have a 116 WRC plus against righties with a 20% strikeout rate. That is not an ideal spot at all, but Wheeler's a very good pitcher. We're up to 11 starts since his velocity stabilized. He has a 2.76 skill interactive ERA. His strikeout rate is 30% with a 4% walk rate. He's also had great batted ball data in that time as well. A lot of things are working in his favor, in terms of what he does as a pitcher, and that helps a lot in the tough matchups. He's faced these Cardinals already in this stretch. As mentioned, it's a repeat matchup. In the same situation, the same 11-start sample, he's also faced the Dodgers once, the Braves twice, and the Angels. So 5 tough matchups. He has a 2.87 ERA in those 5 specific games. But there is one big issue. Again, the Cardinals just saw him last week, and he did shut them down. He threw 7 shutout innings against them, but he had just 5 strikeouts. Now they're seeing him again, this time in St. Louis. it is very much in Wheeler's range of outcomes to struggle tonight with all those things considered. But it's also possible that he is the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. So there's a lot of risk here. There's a lot of downsides in using Zach Wheeler, but the ceiling is there too. And I like ceiling plays, especially when they're not my primary pitcher of the night. So I think that the upside is worth the gamble here for Wheeler. I would make sure you have less of him than Morton and Giolito because they are in better situations, all things considered. But behind them, I'm probably going Zach Wheeler as my third highest exposure pitcher of the night. Let's move now to stacking. We're talking about the Yankees facing Connor Seabold. We've seen 2 starts for Seabold so far and gotten some strikeouts in those, but the results have been really bad, and I think we should stack the Yankees here. Those starts came against the Jays and the Cubs for Seabold. The Jays game, understandable. The Cubs game, he did pitch pretty well. Limited hard contact, didn't go deep in the game, but did pitch pretty well. But the Yankees, they're better than the Cubs. They're more on the Jays side of things on this scale. Down in AAA, Seabold had a 2.09 ERA, but he wasn't overpowering a lot of people. Let up a lot of fly balls, like 45% fly ball rate in AAA, which implies that he's gotten some weak contact, which is good. We saw that in the Cubs game as well. They made almost no hard contact that entire game. But when he didn't get that weak contact against the Jays, things got out of hand in a pretty major way. So basically, Seabold is dependent on inducing weak contact, which could happen against the Yankees, but they have a ton of guys who can hurt you here. So I think they're in a good spot to do well here. I would downgrade the Yankees if Aaron Judge can't play, if Anthony Rizzo can't play. If they're both out especially, then maybe you're looking at like a Giancarlo Stanton one-off type situation. But overall, I think that the Yankees, if we assume Judge is back in there for today, are going to be a high-quality stack for tonight. One guy worth mentioning here is Aaron Hicks. He was abysmal to start the year. But from the middle of June on, he has a 48% hard hit rate. It's 64 plate appearances, 48% hard hit rate, a 13% barrel rate with a 286 ISO. He has homers in back-to-back games. I'm not sure if it'll stick because Hicks was so bad at the start of the year, but he's low salaried at $2,600. There is data to back it up given the hard contact and the barrel rate. So I'm okay using him. I think Josh Donaldson is worth a look as well, but I think there's enough there to buy in. So if you need someone to help offset the salaries of Judge, assuming he plays, Stanton, Rizzo, etc., I do think that Hicks works and Donaldson would work as well. Now, I mentioned Morton and I mentioned the weather in Atlanta. It is very hot. That is good for offense, bad for Charlie Morton. If you want to hedge and take advantage of that weather while still dabbling in that game, I would say let's stack Atlanta. I think the Braves are a good stack for tonight. They're facing Eric Fetty, who's had some decent starts recently. He's had 2 quality starts in his past 3 outings, but the schedule there has been super, super soft and the peripherals are not great. The most relevant sample on Fetty is his past 6 starts. He's been throwing more stinkers and fewer cutters in that time. His ERA is 3.86, but his skill interactive ERA is 4.92, and it gets there thanks to some poor plate discipline numbers. But he's also letting up a lot of hard contact, a 43% rate there in this 6-start sample. We've seen him. We've seen some of these issues in the tougher matchups he has had in this time. We did see Fetty face these same Braves in Washington. Let up 3 runs across 5 1/3 innings. Let up a couple barrels in that game. He had let up a 50% hard hit rate. And now the Braves get to see him again. It's not super recent. That matchup was about a month ago. But, it doesn't hurt to have seen him about a month ago. They're in Atlanta tonight, 90 degrees for this slate. I think there's a lot to like with the Braves in the situation. Now, it's going to be tough to stack the Braves with Morton, given the salaries on their hitters, the salary on Morton, but I think you can make it work. I'd at least give it a shot. But if not, if you're going like Giolito or something, the Braves very, very easy to stack for today. And I do think we can feel good within those Braves stacks about viewing Ronald Acuna Jr. as being mostly what he is at his peak. Obviously, he missed time due to his foot injury again, but he's had just 1 extra base hit since he came back. That's a concern. Injuries are an issue in MLB DFS. Even when guys are playing, if they're playing hurt, they might not be at full strength. But Acuna has 4 stolen bases in this time. He has a couple barrels. He's not striking out at all. So I think he's fine. I'm going to treat him as close to his usual self, even if he hasn't shown all that upside recently. I think that we'll see that eventually, just because he is hitting the ball hard. He's stealing bases, which to me is an indicator of health. So Acuna hasn't popped off since he came back, but I think he probably will soon. So Acuna, to me, really not quite back to full health, but like a guy I'm okay viewing as being a superstar level talent when I'm assembling my Brave stacks for tonight. Now, for our third stack, we'll find some value here. I said a couple months ago that I liked stacking the Diamondbacks. I thought they were pretty fun for DFS. And pretty much right when I said that, the offense hit the tank. They became real bad real quick. So I jinxed them. If you're an Arizona fan, I'm sorry. That's my bad. But they're facing Chad Kuhl tonight. I think they could do pretty well here, and I think that we should stack them in this spot. They just saw Kuhl at Coors over the weekend, and they scored 5 runs in 5 innings. So, we could toss it out because it's Coors Field, but now they get to see him again, and Kuhl has been pretty good at Coors overall this year. He just blanked the Dodgers in the start before that. The Diamondbacks had a 50% fly ball rate against him in that game. They had barely any whiffs in that game. Most of Kuhl's rougher starts have come on the road. He's let up 4+ runs in 5 separate games this year, and 3 of those 5 starts came on the road. We also saw Kuhl last his 3 innings, the last time he had a repeat matchup. So teams saw him again. They were not fooled that second time around. Let up 5 runs with no strikeouts, with 2 strikeouts the first time he faced Arizona in this back-to-back stint. He has a 5.24 skill interactive ERA. His past 8 starts, more sinkers. Velo's been down in that time. It's been rough for Kuhl. 46% fly ball rate, 41% hard hit rate. So yeah, that Dodgers game is there, and it does matter. He had that nice start there. But the overall numbers say we can stack against, and especially when you consider that this Arizona offense did just see Kuhl in his most recent start. So I will do that here, even with the roof being closed at Chase Field for tonight. You can find that by searching for Diamondbacks roof information. Chase Field roof is closed for tonight, but still, I think it's a good stack here to go with Arizona if you want some value. The other plus here is that Kuhl does struggle a lot with lefties. The slugging percentage for lefties is about 100 points higher than that of righties. So Christian Walker's good. I'll still be high on him, but if I'm ranking out the guys to prioritize within this stack, I would say David Peralta, Alec Thomas, Dalton Varsho, maybe Ketel Marte, question mark on that one. But those 3 guys for sure above Walker within the prioritization ladder of our Diamondback stacks due to Kuhl's platoon splits and the fact that they're probably just as good as Walker against righties. Anyway, let's go now to things to watch here. I'm not sure what to think of Chris Bassett tonight. He is at home. He's in a good spot against the Marlins, but he's also coming off the COVID list. He hasn't started since June 25th, which seems like it was yesterday, but also was kind of a long time ago now. I do have a lower pitch count for Bassett for tonight as a result of this. It's still pretty high because he basically just missed 1 trip to the rotation, but even at 90 pitches, it's enough to push Bassett out of the top 3 for me. So if you believe he'll go deeper in the game, maybe you could consider it there. But for me personally, I'm okay being lower on Bassett here. I think the Angels are worth a look. They're facing Tyler Wells, who's done a good job of suppressing hard contact this year. That's why both his ERA and his expected ERA are very good. But Wells lets up a lot of balls in play. Angels are at their feistiest against a lower strikeout pitcher, and they get that here. So I think they could be a little fun. It might not work, but because Wells does have good results for a reason. He's a good pitcher, and he's pitching pretty well, but I think that the Angels are fun as a tournament option for tonight. I also am okay with the other side of that game. That's the Orioles against Reed Detmers. He looked awesome in his 1 start back in AAA, and maybe he found something there. Maybe he worked with a new pitching coach, new voice in his ear, helped him unlock some of that early season stuff he was doing. But the numbers before the demotion, even including the hitter, were pretty rough. The Orioles do have some guys who can pound lefties, so I think that the Orioles and the Angels, both in that game in Baltimore, mighty fine plays for tournaments for tonight. Let's finish up with some dinger calls here for today. The boring one, I do want to go with Ronald Acuna Jr. I know it's not boring based on the 2022 numbers, but the pedigree says this should be a boring home run call, and I like what I've seen. Again, he's getting some barrels. He's running, which says to me he's healthy. And if he's healthy, he's probably going to be good. So Ronald Acuna Jr., the boring home run call for today. The fun one, let's go David Peralta. Again, the swing change he's had so far this year with more fly balls, a lot of hard contact, good ISO against righties, facing Chad cool, letting up a lot of hard contact, a lot of fly balls. I think that does bode well for Peralta. Did consider guys like Dalton Varsho here. I put him above Alek Thomas in terms of just pure home run potential, but we'll go with David Peralta along with Acuna as our home run calls for today. That is all that we have here for today on the solo shot. But as mentioned, we do have NASCAR, UFC coming up later on, the Open Championship next week on Monday, all right here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. So fun weekend for some sports the next couple of weeks. Make sure you are subscribed. If you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll talk to you once again on Monday for another slate of MLB DFS. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.